Thank you so much for tuning in to the Final Cut Pro Help live stream here. And we're going to have an excellent time today talking about Final Cut Pro. And let me get my keynote going and we'll dive right into this. So again, thank you so much for watching the Final Cut Pro Help live stream. Again, my name is Jared Ewing, and this is episode 3, Intro to Final Cut. This episode is going to provide a high-level overview of Final Cut Pro 10 and is geared towards new users of Final Cut Pro 10 or first-time editors. A replay of this stream will be made available, and I'll include links in the description to make it easy to jump to a specific step. Please leave a comment with any questions or feedback that you may have. So let's dive into it. Final Cut Pro 10. What is it? Final Cut Pro 10 is a revolutionary app for creating, editing, and producing the highest quality video. Final Cut Pro combines high-performance digital editing and native support for virtually any video format with easy-to-use and time-saving features that let you focus on storytelling. That quote, written by Apple, the developers of Final Cut Pro, is from the support article HT202413. That article includes answers to many other questions, including where to find other useful articles, documentation, that is pronounced Final Cut Pro 10 and not X, how to submit feedback, and many other useful things that especially people new to Final Cut Pro will find useful. All you have to do is go to apple.com and do a search for that support article number, and there's a bunch of other frequently asked questions about Final Cut. So Final Cut Pro 10, how do you get it on your computer? That's kind of the first step to get started, and everything we talk about really today is going to be geared towards people brand new to Final Cut Pro 10, or people that are just getting started with video editing in general. This is kind of going to give you the scope of all of it. And the first thing is getting your editor, in this case Final Cut Pro 10, onto your computer. So Apple sells Final Cut Pro 10 exclusively on the Mac App Store, which is included with every Mac using Mac OS. And once you find the App Store and open it, which is either in your Applications folder or sometimes it's on your dock, this is the main featured page of the App Store. And Final Cut Pro 10 is usually listed on the right column, and sometimes it's also on the bottom. So just look for it anywhere on that page there. You can always do a search too at the top right corner. And after you click on it, you're going to see a page probably similar to this one where you see Final Cut Pro on the list of apps. And mine says open, but yours will show the price there if you haven't purchased it or installed it on your computer. And where you see that price, you just click on it and it'll take you through those steps to get that installed and purchased. The other thing that's really nice is Apple does provide a 30-day trial of Final Cut. So you can just go to the link on the page there, fill out the little form there, and you'll get a 30-day trial of the most recent release, Final Cut Pro 10. And I know some people dislike getting iTunes gift cards as gifts, but those iTunes gift cards also work on the App Store. This means you can put that credit towards the purchase of Final Cut Pro 10. So save up those cards if you're looking to get it. Now, when you actually get into making a movie and editing with Final Cut Pro 10, there is a workflow to it, and there's 6 steps, in my opinion, to your success with Final Cut Pro 10. And those steps start out with importing the media into Final Cut. Step 2 is to organize that media. Then in step 3, you're going to add those clips and start building a rough cut or a project. Then in step 4, you're going to refine that rough cut. Step 5, you might add transitions and effects. And then the final step is to share that project with someone. So those are the steps to making a movie with Final Cut. And obviously this is just breaking it down to kind of the high level overview of a Final Cut. And we're going to cover these steps in a little bit more detail. But just know that there is a lot more to this whole process. But that's the summary. You got to first import it, organize, edit, and then get it out to everyone else. So to detail those in slides would be a lot of work. So instead of that, I'm actually going to just demo the whole process. We're actually going to edit a little video here. So let me dive into the video. And you should see now my screen. Again, definitely in the chat, leave any comments you have. Most of you will be watching this on a replay, and that's fine. But leave a comment if you have any questions or anything else does come up, so I can get those answered for you. Hopefully the stream works very well, but if there's any issues with it, just let me know. So after you get Final Cut Pro from the App Store, you're going to go down to your dock at the bottom. It may be on the dock. If not, just click the Launchpad button and look for Final Cut Pro. It's this little clapboard icon. And when you open it up for the first time, it may take a little longer to open because it's setting up some of the things that Final Cut needs to actually run correctly. But then you're going to see a window that looks similar to this. And there are 4 primary areas in Final Cut Pro. The area at the top left, this area right now, it says nothing selected, and you might see an untitled event on the left side, or library. This area is called the browser. Next to the browser is the viewer. That's this darker gray area. On the right is the inspector. And at the bottom, we have the magnetic timeline. So each of these 4 areas of Final Cut, that's kind of the start to it. And we're going to go in deeper. There's many other windows and other things in there. But the buttons at the top right, you can use these to show or hide some of the areas on there. And especially if you've already been using Final Cut, you might have rearranged all this. You might have adjusted it. You can actually take it so that the timeline doesn't have as much space. Maybe you want the viewer to be nice and big. So you can adjust all of those things, but that can make it really confusing if you're trying to follow along. So one of the first shortcuts I recommend learning is Command 0. So if you press Command, while holding that, press the number 0 on your keyboard. That'll get you to this. It'll just rearrange it so it gets us back to the default layout. So Command 0, that's an important shortcut. I'll throw out a couple other ones that I recommend learning. But now that you've seen the interface, step 1 in those 6 steps we talked about at the beginning is to import your media. So we're going to do that, and all you have to do is hit this big button here where it says Import Media. And that's going to bring up the media import window. In this window on the left column, it's going to show any cameras you might have connected to the computer, including the built-in FaceTime camera. If you wanted to record just some video right now, you can hit that one and it'll show that camera. I have a GoPro Hero 5 plugged in, so it shows that camera. Then you'll see other devices like external hard drives or your computer, and have any favorite spots, you might see those as well. So on here, if I wanted to import some video from the camera, I'll click on the Hero 5 session camera. It shows me each of the clips listed here. In the bottom right, I can hit some of these buttons to change how these clips are viewed, so I can make them bigger or smaller. Or I can switch it to a list if I just want to see a list of the clips. So there's buttons on there to change how it views. But once you see these clips, if you want to import one, you just click on the clip you want to import. And then in the bottom right, just say Import Selected. And what that does is it's going to start to import that clip into our library here. At the top left corner, you can see a little background tasks button. This is actually that clip being imported. And this one, because it's on the GoPro camera, what it's doing there is copying that clip over to the computer so that we can use it and start editing it. If I slide across it, there we see that clip. So that's one way to import clips when it's off of a camera. But the other part is if you have clips already on your computer. Maybe you downloaded a video from somewhere, you have some stock footage that you want to edit with, or stuff that's in photos, you can do all of that. So another way to get to the import window is to use the shortcut Command I. So I'm going to press Command I to go back to the import window. And I actually have some clips on the desktop. So I'm going to click the desktop on the left column here. And I want to import this entire folder of Yosemite videos that I have. I think there's 5 or 6 videos here. We're going to import these and edit a video with them. So I have the folder selected. On the right side, I want to add this to my existing event. Now the event right now is the date, and we're going to cover this in just a minute. But if you wanted to, you could create a new event. If I wanted this to be in a completely different folder of clips, create a new event, and then you can give it a name. But in this case, I'm just going to add it to this one with the date, and we're going to rename that in a second to make it easy to organize. But while you're new to working with Final Cut, I would say just to put everything in one event, and then as you get more comfortable with the way that Final Cut Pro works, then you can start to make more events and additional ones. But just know that all video and really any media that you import into Final Cut, it's going to be connected to that event. I also strongly recommend keeping the setting as copy to library. Libraries are the way that Final Cut organizes projects, events, everything that you do inside of Final Cut's organized into libraries. And if you choose to leave the files in place, that means you have to organize everything outside. And if you're new to Final Cut, it's just one extra layer that you have to deal with. So for now, I would recommend keeping this set to copy to library. And then all of these things, if you have any questions, just shoot them over to me. You can send an email to finalcutprohelp@me.com or tweet at me. At the end of this video, I'll put all that stuff up so you know exactly how to get in touch with me if you need to. So notice here, it is going to add a keyword based on the folder name, which is Yosemite. So I'm going to keep all that set. And if I wanted to, I could create extra media and analyze for these different things. But for now, I'm new to Final Cut. I'm getting used to it. I'm going to skip all those things for now. You can apply all these settings you see later if you need to. So that's how it is. I'm going to say import selected. And then notice all those clips right here ready to go almost immediately. Final Cut is very fast at editing videos in general. So it's trying to be as efficient and as quick as you can so you can jump right to editing right when you hit import. So another thing I want to point out under the file menu, we have import, and everything we just did was import media. So we did Command I to import that. We hit the button on the toolbar back here, but you can definitely get to this file, import, and then you have the media option. While we're talking about this, when you're importing into Final Cut, into that library, it's copying that media to your computer's hard drive or your computer's storage. If your computer breaks down, say it gets stolen, something awful happens, everything that's on that drive you're going to lose unless it's copied, unless it's backed up somewhere. So for my GoPro, I just imported that clip. I'm usually going to erase my memory card and reuse it to shoot more video. So with the footage imported onto the computer, I'm going to make a backup of that. And you can do that by making a camera archive, or you can create a time machine backup with your computer. I'm not going to detail how to do that here, but please back up your data. We can replace everything, but you can't replace data once it's lost. That's something that's very hard to recover, very expensive, if it's even possible. If you are new to Final Cut, but you've been using maybe iMovie, either on an iOS device like an iPhone or your computer, you can definitely import those iMovie projects into Final Cut and continue working with them. So that's a great way to maybe get comfortable with Final Cut by using an iMovie project you already made. So definitely look into that. You can do those things just by importing them. So that is the first step. We needed to import our video and start to organize it. And that's step one. We created a backup. We have everything ready to go. So now we're getting into the organizing phase. So that's the end of step one, and we're moving over to step two. But just know that these steps, you can intertwine them. If you decide later on you need to add another clip, that's perfectly fine. You can go and import it. But just know that you're never really done with every single step. You can always come back and do these things really out of order. But for this project, we're done importing media. We have everything here. So step two is to organize it. And the way that things are organized up here in our browser, as you might have seen, we have this thing called Untitled. We have some smart collections. We have the date. And then we even have this little key here now that wasn't there a second ago called Yosemite. So I've seen editors, and I do one-on-one training. So I get a lot of people that come to me, and they've been editing for a couple of years, maybe a year or so. They've been using Final Cut for a while, but they don't know how to correctly organize all of the stuff that's on the computer, because I could ignore all this stuff that's here and start editing the project. But really, if you can understand and get organization down early, since you are brand new to Final Cut, now is the time to do it. So where it says Untitled, if I hit the little triangle next to it, it closes it, and that is the library. So these 4 little stars, that's your library, and everything you import into the event, into these other areas, is connected and stored in this library. So I'm going to change this. It was kind of called Untitled, but I'm going to change this, and this is our Yosemite trip we took last month. So I'm going to call it May 2018. And that's the name of the library. Now, the event is the single star here, and that's got the date on it. So I'm just going to call this one May 2018. It's really the same thing. Since we're not going to have multiple events, the library and the event could be the same name. That's fine. And then we have this little key here with Yosemite. This is just another set of organization. We're going to come back to that in a second. But that is the difference between a library and event. You can have multiple events in a library, but an event can't have multiple libraries. So if we were to think about it, Yosemite is the house, your home, which maybe has multiple rooms. An event can be considered like a room. You might have multiple events inside of a library. I could say that this is a Yosemite library, and maybe I took multiple trips, and then each time I went on a trip, I could have a different event for that specific trip. So those are events. And then we have projects. You might see down at the bottom here this thing that says new projects. And a project is an actual edited video. So we're going to put these clips together so that they play in a movie. That's the project. So a project and all of our video clips are saved inside an event, in this case May 2018. And that May 2018 event is saved inside the Yosemite May 2018 library. So those are some keywords that you should see and start to get familiar with. This left column is the browser and the sidebar, which is what this little blue button up is here. So we can click that if we wanted to hide the library sidebar. And then on the right side, we see each of the clips. So in terms of organizing these clips, there's a couple ways to do it. I could look at a clip and, like say here, this one's the one from the GoPro. Maybe I don't like this clip. I can click on it and then hit the delete key on the keyboard. And that's actually rejecting that clip. It's not completely gone. It's just rejected it. And at the top right here, this is set to hide rejected. So that's why it disappeared. I could change this to all clips. And now I see that rejected clip. So one of the first things that I do when I'm organizing my video after it's imported is I'm going to go through and reject any clips I don't like and mark the favorite clips, the ones I actually want to use, as favorites. So to do that, when I'm hovering my mouse here, if I want to watch the clip, I'm just going to hit the space bar. And now it's playing back that clip. If I hit the space bar again, it pauses it. And if I wanted to, I'm looking at this clip, and it starts up looking up at, that's El Capitan there. I'm looking at El Capitan, and then the shot kind of pans down and over across this river. So you can see some of the paths, and then goes over to the tree. So it starts out kind of looking at El Capitan for a little bit there. So I'm going to click and drag across this clip. And notice the yellow box across the clip here. That's the part I'm selecting. And I just want that little part to be the favorite. The other videos at the beginning, when it's just sitting here, I'm going to delete, and same with this part after. So I'm just marking this area as a favorite, and I'm going to do that with it selected by hitting the F key on the keyboard to say I want to mark that as a favorite. And then I'll go to the next clip. And actually, this one you can see is just a still clip, and I do like that. So I'm just going to click anywhere on the still and hit F to mark it as a favorite. And notice, since it's a still, it marks the entire thing as a favorite. This third clip kind of again pans across the river and ends with a couple people hiking. Those are actually the buddies we were out hiking with. So I'm going to click and drag across this clip and then hit the F key to mark that as a favorite. I really like this clip. Mark it as a favorite. That's just a still. And then let's see this clip. Just hitting the space bar to play it. And this clip is us driving into it. So we can actually see Yosemite Falls there. Hey Siri, stop. The HomePod started going. And so there's Yosemite Falls. And this is a longer clip. So I actually like when we get out of the trees and we see the falls there. So I'm going to mark that as a favorite. And then, ooh, I like this one. We're going to do the same thing. Click and drag, hit F to mark as a favorite. And this one, this was the GoPro shot. I've already rejected it, and I'm actually going to keep that rejected. If I didn't want to, if I accidentally marked that as rejected, I could click on it and hit the U key, U for uniform, to unmark it as rejected. But in this case, I'm going to reject it. I'm going to go up to all clips, and I'm going to hide that rejected clip because I don't need it right now. Now, these clips are all pretty short. I don't think any of these, except this one, is this one's about 1.5 minutes long. So there's these menus up here to make it easier to look at these clips. You can hit this menu to zoom in to the clips and change the appearance. This is the clip appearance menu. We can use this one to zoom into it. And this is something that could be a little difficult to get used to. So I want to show these. I'm going to make these bigger here by clicking this button, which switches over to the list view. So each of our clips, when you click a clip, like this ending clip, this is a video clip. So we see it as a video here. If I switch back to our, this is the film strip view, notice how the film strips are kind of broken up. I want to zoom in because it can be difficult. I wish I could just have my finger here and point to it. But notice this first little block, and then it kind of cuts here, and we have two separate images. But it's all one clip. And when your menu up here, right now this little one is set to 10 seconds. So what that means is roughly this first part is 10 seconds. And then the second part is saying that it maybe is another 10 seconds, because this clip is about 20 seconds long. So that's why you see two 10-second parts. Whereas if I click on this and I go to the left and I set it to 1 minute, that's what this 1M stands for. That means each one of these blocks represents about 1 minute or less of footage. If there were 2 blocks, that means the clip is almost 2 minutes long. So that's what these little film strips are, and if you switch to the list view, you just get this mini film strip regardless of how long the clips are. If they're stills, they just do a little tiny still. So I like this view. I like the film strip view for getting on. It's very visual. And then using this menu, you can adjust the size and adjust the way that these clips look. Especially for people new to editing, being able to see the video and see the clips a specific way is something you really want to get used to. So use this menu to adjust the look of it. I find myself constantly changing the look of it when I'm going through a massive project with a lot of clips. So you also have options here you can check off if you want to see the waveform. That shows the audio. And then there's continuous playback, which I do actually like to have this one turned on because this goes through one clip at a time. It'll keep playing the clips even after you finish one. But again, they're here as options because some people like it, some people don't, and that's totally fine. So organizing, after I've marked clips as favorite and maybe reject some clips, I then go up here to where it says hide rejected, and I change this to favorites. Now it cuts out anything that's not a favorite and shows me just those clips. Which if you have a project, I'm only working with 6 clips here, so it's very small. But if you have a project that's a couple hundred clips or more, being able to eliminate all those ones that are not favorites, it's just a really powerful feature. Now you can also organize by keywords. And that's what this Yosemite keyword is on the left side here. And what this means is that any clip that you click on, you can go up to the Mark menu. And there's this option here that says Show Keyword Editor. And the keyword editor allows you to add in additional keywords. So for example, I'm going to go to this tunnel view shot. Way in the distance there is a waterfall. So I'm going to use the keyword waterfall. And then same thing. These ones, we were driving by Yosemite Falls. I'm going to click on the first one, hold shift, and click on the second one. And I'm also going to put in waterfall. And notice it fills it in for me because it sees it. So as I'm adding those keywords, on the left side, we get a keyword collection for that keyword, in this case, waterfall. So if I want to easily see all the clips that have waterfalls, I can see it. If I go to Yosemite, I'm seeing all the ones from that Yosemite folder. And you might be thinking, okay, I see the 2 clips here with the Yosemite Falls, and I see the still image that has it in the distance there. Well, if I click on waterfall, they're also showing here. The good news is they're not being duplicated. Okay, so these clips are on your computer, they're only there once. You're just marking it with these clips. So if you were to delete one of these clips from, say, waterfall, you would be deleting it everywhere. It would also delete it from the event. It would delete it from the library, everywhere. And if you actually do this, if you do command delete with a clip selected, it'll bring up a menu here letting you know that you're moving this, and it's the reference file, but you're moving everything. So anywhere else that clip shows up, you're going to delete it. So it's okay to have keywords, multiple keywords on clips, and they're not being duplicated. So don't delete things and accidentally lose everything. I've seen that too many times. So that's kind of an introduction to organizing with Final Cut Pro. Again, just to summarize, you can import those clips. They're going to go into an event. You can add keywords. You can mark them as favorite, reject clips. And then there are many additional tools for organizing. You can mark clips with things called roles. And there's other things built into Final Cut for organization. So that's just an intro to it. But just know there are many other ways to sort things. So if you find all of your clips very overwhelming to deal with, and maybe it's difficult to find something, you might be missing something with the organization. So if you got any questions with that, you can always jump out to us when we're here. The first live stream, this is the 3rd one. The first one we did was all on organization, and it goes into this window in a lot greater detail. So if you do have any other questions, maybe watch that video, and it should help out. So that's organization. Moving on to step 3, we're going to add some clips to a project. So we're actually going to start building our project or building the rough cut to be able to start actually editing our project. So at the bottom, I'm going to click on this new project button. If you don't see that button, because it goes away after you have one project, you can also create a project by going up to the File menu, go to New, and then click on Project, or use the shortcut Command N. It's very common to have multiple projects, so that's how you create a new one. And then you want to give the project a name. So I'm going to call this the 2018 trip. And it's going to be put into the May event. Just like video, it has to be stored in an event, so you can have that one set there. If you had multiple events, you could select it. And then we're going to hit OK. For those getting started, that's probably all you have to do. If you do want to customize, say, the format, the resolution, you have the control to do that. But for now, we're going to keep it as the automatic settings, which is going to set everything based on the video clip we add to the project, which is perfect. And then click OK. And now notice at the bottom, we have this darker gray area. That's the primary storyline. And up on the browser, we have the 2018 trip up here too. That's the project. So we have our empty project, and we're ready to start building the project. So the way that this one gets built is we just have to click on a clip and drag it down to the project. So I'm going to start out with the El Capitan clip. I'm just going to click on it and now just drag it down. And notice as I'm dragging that clip, that blue area is where the clip's going to go. So even if I'm way over on the right here, the magnetic timeline is going to put the clip where it basically thinks you want to put that, which in this case, I do want it right at the beginning of the project. So I'm just going to let go of it, and it puts it over here on the left column. So if I go back, I can hit the space bar, play the project, and now we're seeing that clip. So that's how easy it is to add a clip to a project. You just have to find it up at the top and then click to select it. You can select just a little part of it or drag all the way across. If the yellow part's not around the entire clip, you can drag those left and right handles to select the part you want. And then just click and drag it down. And then notice the blue area is directly after the first clip we added, so it knows where to put that clip. And that's one of the really cool things about the magnetic timeline. It just knows where to put those clips. So after adding those clips by dragging them, you can also remove a clip if it's not where you want it to be. So if this ending, if I decided that wasn't the one I wanted to add, just click on it so it has the yellow boundaries around it. And then on your keyboard, press the delete key. And by deleting it, I'm not deleting the clip completely. It's still in my event. It's still up here in the browser. And if I want to, I could just click and drag that down again to add it. But to remove something, just click on it, hit the delete key, and you're good. So that's how you add and delete clips. You can also add clips using these 4 buttons on the toolbar. Each one of these performs a slightly different action. If you have your tooltips enabled, you can just hover over it and it'll tell you what each of those are. But essentially what we want to do is build our clips here. So I'm actually going to go through and do something with each of these. So with a clip selected, if you hit this first button, this is the append to the primary storyline. So it's actually going to make a clip connection and put it on a second row or a second kind of lane here up at the top, and it's a connected clip. So this is not something you want. We see this light gray area. For those new editors out there, you don't want this. You don't want it connected like this. So just select the clips. Notice there's 2 of them. And then I'm just in the empty area here. I'm just clicking and dragging across them to select them. And then hit the delete key to remove it. So you don't want to use this first one when you're new and getting started here to connect the clip. Because we just want to build a couple clips one after the other. And that's what this third button is. It just appends a clip to the end of the project. So if I want the half-tone picture to go on the end, I can click on it and then append it. And then maybe now I want the ending clip here, the river. I can append that one to the end. So that's using the append button, which is the shortcut E. Now I can also insert a video based on where the playhead is, which is this white line. So if I click and drag, I'm moving the playhead. And if I put the playhead directly in the middle of this clip with another one selected, if I hit insert, it actually splits the ending clip into 2 and puts that in the middle. So you can really organize these clips in any way that you want and insert them into different places. So I actually don't want to do that. I'm just going to build a video here, a project, by placing one clip after another. So I'm just going to click in the empty space, drag across all of them to select them, and hit the delete key to delete the clips. So we've organized all these clips, and now I'm building the project just with one clip after another. So I want these clips in a certain order. So I'm going to start out with the El Capitan video. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to use the append option, which is this third one. And I'm just using the shortcut E to do that, or I can drag it down. So we're going to do El Capitan. Let's do the half dome picture next. After half dome, I'm going to do the tunnel view. So I'm going to select it and hit E. It puts it right at the end there. Then let's do Yosemite Falls. Let's get that clip. Again, selecting it and then pressing E. And then I'm going to end it with our ending clip. So now I've put a couple clips here on the timeline and built a rough cut of the project. On the kind of a little tip here on the right side, we have a couple buttons. You might have heard as I'm dragging across this, there's a little bit of audio. I can click on this audio skimming button to turn that off. Now when I drag across, it doesn't play that audio. That's a good way to get some, because that audio scrubbing can be a little bit annoying at times. But if the video is not playing back when you drag across, you might have turned off video skimming, which is this other button here. And that way when you drag across, it doesn't skim the video. But I like that, so I'm going to turn it back on. And then just like the browser, there is a view menu here as well, so you can customize the view. So I'm actually going to zoom into this, make it a little bit bigger. Hopefully this makes it easier for y'all to see this. You can also switch how these clips are viewed, but I like one of these where I can still see the audio at the bottom. That's what all these little waveforms are at the bottom, just a visual representation of the audio, and then the clips. Okay, so this is our little timeline, and if I play it back, we can see the first clip playing. At the top, there's the little time codes. So between each of these lines here is about 10 seconds is what they're representing. In the middle of Final Cut Pro 10 is the actual time code, so we can see our little time viewer here, which is great for seeing where you are in the project. So if I click anywhere where these lines are at the top here, the little time code values, I can click and drag to move the playhead around, and that'll jump you to a specific part of the project. So if I go to the end, kind of right around here, our time code is, this is 0 hours, 1 minute, 2 seconds, and 27 frames. That's what that time means. So this project's about a minute long, and that's fine. That's about what I want. So these clips are in a pretty good order. We've looked at how to add those clips in. So that's really step 3. That's all there is to it. You kind of build a rough cut of your project and where you want them. It's kind of like the blueprint of where everything is going to go. And now we're moving to step 4, which is refining that rough cut. In step 4, we're going through and we're trimming things. We're making sure it's exactly the length that we want the clips to be and that we're seeing exactly the right thing. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to first skim across my clips just to see what I have, because I do like this first one as the opening where it kind of pans from the sky and seeing El Capitan to the river. We then get a still image here looking up at it with the clouds. I do like those. But then this shot, it's got all the cars. I don't really like the cars. That takes away from it. So I actually want to replace this shot of Yosemite Falls with the other ones, because this one, I really like this shot in comparison to that other one. So to replace a shot, just go into your browser, find the one you're going to use, and then click and drag that, and drag it directly onto the clip you want to replace. You'll notice that when I do that, it kind of highlights the clip that we're replacing in white. And when you let go of your mouse or your trackpad, you're going to get the replace options. So in this case, I just want to replace the clip. There's other ones here, and you can look into those if you want to use those. But in this case, we're just replacing it. So this removes the Yosemite Cars one that was there and puts in the Yosemite Falls Trail clip, just like that. We didn't lose anything. We still have both clips up in the browser. We can always get them if we wanted to. And you can even use the same clip multiple times. If I wanted to, I could drag that down. So we're not losing anything. Don't worry about, that other clip that we replaced. We can always get it back if we needed to by going back to the browser. So that's how you replace a clip. Final Cut Pro 10 also includes a lot of tools. This tool is our selection, kind of the primary tool. Shortcut to get to it is A. That's what these letters on the right side are. But some other tools that Final Cut includes, we have a position tool. If you're used to editing maybe with a different editor, you might not like how the magnetic timeline is causing all these clips to just connect to each other. So with the position tool, I can actually click and drag a clip, and wherever I drag it is where it goes. It's going to add these gap clips by doing that, and the magnetic part of the timeline doesn't happen. So that's what the position tool is. I like to point it out because if you're coming from another editor, you might really dislike the magnetic timeline at first. The position tool is there if you want that kind of more track-based feel as far as editors go. However, if you're not used to editing with a different editor, and even if you are, I would strongly recommend getting used to the magnetic timeline earlier and sticking with your select tool, because the magnetic timeline is actually really cool. And I just messed up this project and added all these gap clips, but because we have a magnetic timeline, I can simply click this clip, drag it down, it jumps right into the correct spot. If I click and delete this gap clip and this one, the magnetic part of the timeline is causing all those clips to connect to each other. So if I were to use the position tool and click and delete a clip, it leaves that gap in, and that's what we don't want. So we're going to stick with using the select tool and definitely get used to that magnetic timeline. It's a really good one. But another tool that I like to point out early on that I use very frequently is the blade tool. this razor blade. And you can get to it just using the shortcut B, the letter B on your keyboard. Now, razor blades seems a little intense, but this comes from the older film editing. When movies were actually shot onto physical film, the way to edit it was to physically cut it and tape these things together. So that's why it's a razor blade, but we can go in here and click on a clip, and it cuts it. So this is one way to cut up a clip. I'm going to hit A on the keyboard to switch to my arrow tool. Then you can go in and delete just a part. But like anything, if you make a mistake, Command Z to undo, and that gets you right back to where you were before. Now, if I did use the blade tool to cut this clip, then I hit the A to delete it, I can also just click and drag on the side of a clip on these handles, and that brings the clip back. So you can actually drag the handles to edit parts of the clip you don't want and cut things out, which is a very cool way of editing, very simple. There's not too much to do. So another way to refine our project is with the enhancements menu. So you have plenty of tools to work with on the timeline, but you can also select a clip and go up to the little enhancements menu. There's an option here for balance color, match color. There's an auto enhance audio. So these are tools where it's going to look at the clip and it's going to try to fix it for you. And I could actually select all of these clips and then say balance color. And it's going to go through and try to balance the color on all of those clips and do some correction there. And actually, I think I like what it did on this one. If I look at this clip, I'm going to select it and go up to the top right in our inspector. Notice there's this little, kind of looks like a little movie icon. This is the video inspector. And this is where it added that balance color effect. If I uncheck it, this is before, and this is after. Before, after. And it might be really difficult to see because it is a subtle change. Let's see if we can see it here. Yeah, very, very hard to see it, but on my display here, I'm seeing a lot more clarity. It's just a slightly better tone and a better color. Now this is Yosemite, so everything looks really good already. But it helps things pop and helps that color. So that's a way to quickly adjust the color and correct it. You can also do the same thing with audio. So with it selected, I'm going to say auto enhance audio. And it's going to go through and try to correct that audio and balance it. So those are some of the built-in tools to help refine your rough cut and refine the clips on there by adjusting the position of things. We can also add music. Music would actually help this. If you listen to the audio, it's just wind and background noise. It's really actually not that nice. So I'm going to get some music in here, and I'm going to go up to the top left. Right above our library sidebar, we have our media, our photos and audio sidebar. And this is going to show you Logic, GarageBand, a whole bunch of sound effects that come built in and free with Final Cut, and then iTunes. So this actually will go ahead and show my entire iTunes library. This is just a demo computer, so I only have one song. It's called Music, but this is the track I want. So I'm going to click and drag that song down onto the project. Music usually goes below your video clips. You could put it above if you wanted to, but I'm going to put it down below. And this green line then represents the song. So now if I play the project, there's nothing, and then there's the music. So I want the music to start right at the beginning, so I'm going to click and drag the handle kind of right to the beginning of the song there. And then I'm going to click and drag the song to the left. And at the end here, this is really the end, so we don't need any more of this song. So I'm going to hit the B key to get my razor blade. I'm going to click on the song to split it. I'm going to hit the A key to switch back to my arrow tool. I'm going to click and delete that song. I created a gap clip. I like to delete that as well, keep things a little clean. So the music, let's play it again. Yeah, the music starts okay, but it doesn't really fade out here. It's just going to end. It just stops. So to make music fade out, I can actually just drag this little handle right at the end. I'm going to click and drag it across. And now notice this line, and it drags out. That's how you create a fade out. So if you heard that, the music just slowly becomes quieter and quieter. If you had your remote and you're pointing it at the TV, it's like you're holding the volume button down, it just kind of slowly goes down. And if I want to lower the volume of the video clips, I can just click and drag the lines that are on those clips that represents the audio, and I'm lowering that audio. So that's how easy it is to add music to a project in Final Cut Pro 10. I could do the same thing if you have iPhoto or Photos. You have other photo applications. That'll show up here on the left column on the sidebar. So you can import photos very easily as well that way. Now with photos, what I've done, we have these two still photos. With photos, you might see these black lines on the side. Those are going to show up. If we were to upload this to YouTube or watch it on our TV screen, unless you're on a zoomed in screen, you're going to see these black bars. So to adjust those or transform those photos, just hit the transform tool in the lower left corner. You're going to see these little circles on the sides of the picture. So just you can click and drag that to zoom into the picture. Now it's filling the whole screen. I can adjust exactly the part that I want to see. You can even go onto a picture and click and hold the transform tool and change it. You could even crop or distort the picture if you really wanted to. And this lets you actually manipulate the photo and adjust certain parts of it. So you do have those options as well. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that and go back to the transform tool. And in this case, I want this photo to be zooming in. I want to kind of start in closer on the clouds and start out and then zoom into those clouds. So I'm going to first transform this by going to the first frame of the video. So just hit the arrow up. I'm going to grab one of these and kind of zoom in. Let's go. We're going to start down in the corner here. And at the top left, notice there's a little diamond button here in the middle. And this is going to add a keyframe. So I'm going to click on that to add it. And that added the keyframe right at the beginning of this clip. And then I'm going to drag the playhead to the end of the clip. Go back up here and we're going to transform this again. And to make this easier, I'm going to hit the percent, change this down to 25%, and we're going to zoom in even closer here. We're going to go right up to where the peaks are into the clouds. Cool. Then I'm going to hit done. I'm going to hit the 25% and say fit to zoom back in there. And now let's play this. So with that still picture, by adding those keyframes, we actually created some movement with the picture. You can do that with video as well. So with this clip, I'm going to put the playhead again at the beginning of the clip. Again, that's the most important thing. Using the arrows on the keyboard, either up or down, you can jump that playhead around. We're going to enable the transform tool, this button in the lower left corner. I'm going to add a keyframe. Then I'm going to move the playhead near the end of actually all the way at the end. So I'm going to go down and then left one arrow. And then we just want this to zoom in. Now we use the little circles on the side. You can also use the inspector, this right column, and go under the transform options. To the right, there's a little show button that comes up when you move your arrow onto it. And this shows you all of the parameters in a lot more detail. So I just want to scale in so we get a little closer to that waterfall. And it automatically adds the keyframe. That's what those yellow diamonds are on the right side. So then if I play this, now there's that subtle zoom going a little bit closer to the waterfall just by adding those couple keyframes. Now the transform tool there, if you're a little lost, I completely understand. That's something that takes a little bit of getting used to, especially working with keyframes. So that's just kind of an introduction to show you what's possible with Final Cut. Now the other part of it that I see when I'm looking at this video, we got music, we've added a couple clips, but I really want a title. I want people to know that this is Yosemite. If they don't recognize the hills there, I want them to know it. But I also want them to know that this was our May trip. So what I'm going to do is go up to the top left, and we saw the library sidebar. We also saw our photos and audio sidebar. But then we have one here for titles and generators. And if you hit the little triangle next to titles, you can see the different groups of titles. And maybe I want a 3D cinematic title. I can go on the right here now and drag across to see what those titles look like. And those are actually a little too intense for me. So let's see if we just do titles. Let's try the rotate one. How about that one? So I'm going to click the title and drag it down onto our project. I'm going to use a shortcut here, which is Shift-Z. Shift-Z zooms the project to fit in the timeline at the bottom. So I use Shift-Z here just to zoom in, maybe hopefully make it a little bit easier to see. So we know that these blue clips represent the video and the green represents our song. Now we have a purple line here that represents the title. And it just says rotate 3D. We don't want it to say that. But I do want it to last about the entire length of this clip. Maybe about 3/4 of the clip. So I'm just dragging the left and right little handles of this purple line. And if I play the project, there we have our rotate 3D title. I obviously don't want it to say rotate 3D. So I'm just going to double click on the text here. And that selects it. And then I just want this to say Yosemite. All right, so now we've added our title. And if we do want the year. Yeah, let's add the year. I can hit return if I want to drop it down below. Very similar to working with just a normal text editor. If we wanted to reposition it, we can hit the little circle in the middle. I'm just clicking and dragging. You can move it around. You might see those yellow lines come up. Those are guidelines. It's actually helping snap it and align it right to the middle. On the right side, we can adjust things like the size, the font. All of these different options here you can adjust and customize to make the title look just the way that you want it. Once the title looks good, let's go back and just play it, make sure everything's fine. Looks good to me. I'm fine with that title. And now with the title in there, we've really modified this pretty well. This thing looks okay. It's still a little bit rough. We've got music in there, but there's definitely something missing. So we're going to go on to step 5 here because we want to add transitions and effects. So right now, if we play the project, we're seeing one of the simplest transitions, a cut. It just literally, if you had to cut in film, if you remember the razor blade with film, they just cut the film and connect it to another clip. And when it just switches pictures instantly, that's a cut. So we don't want this for that. We kind of want to use some transitions to make it easy to get from one clip to another. So on the right side, all the way on the right center of Final Cut's interface, there's on the toolbar here, there's a transition browser. It's the one all the way on the right side. You can use the shortcut Shift Command 5 to get to it. And these are the transitions that are built into Final Cut. If you want to use one, let's say a cross dissolve here, I'm just going to click and drag it onto the clip. And this gray area with these little triangles in here, that's a transition. So now if I play the project, you can see how it just faded from the first clip into the next one using that cross dissolve transition. We could also use a couple of these other transitions. I'm going to click and drag them just so you can see some of the other ones. Let's do color panes. And let me mute this so you don't have to see some of these transitions here. So it's really cool. You can then click and drag on the transitions to make them longer or shorter. And with the transitions selected, some transitions have additional controls. So in the inspector at the right here, you might have noticed we have for the checkerboard, we can actually add more bands, more checkers to this transition. So you can really take some of these and customize them to look exactly the way you want it to look. Actually, like how that looks, so that one's good. So don't hesitate. If you're on the side here and you're previewing these, you can see it starts from the orange clip and then transitions to the blue clip. If you're like, that looks okay, but maybe you want it to do a little bit more, add it, and then you might be able to customize that transition beyond just the couple things that you saw there. So that's how you can use the transition browser to look for transitions, and then you just drag them in between two clips to actually add that transition. Very similar to that, we do have, actually let me look at one other tool here before I jump to effects. There is a trim tool, and the trim tool lets you do things like this. You can click and drag the transition around and reposition it. And notice what that is doing, that's what's called a roll edit. It's rolling the transition left and right to wherever you want to put it. If I'm dragging it to the right, what that's doing is extending the length of the Yosemite Falls trail clip, and it's shortening the ending clip. But notice on the right here, the end of my project, as I'm rolling some of these clips, the entire duration or length of my clip isn't changing. So that's the trim tool. I would recommend going up to the help menu and open up Final Cut Pro 10 Help. This opens up the manual for Final Cut, which is over almost 1,000 pages of really detailed information on each one of these tools. That's the trim tool. It's a really good tool for refining your rough cut here and really getting it to be ready to go and ready to share. And when I'm adding transitions, that tends to be one of the major points when I use that trim tool. Now, next to the transition browser, we have the effects browser. Command 5 is the shortcut for that one. And these are, if you think of your special effects, when you go to a movie, if you go and see Star Wars and you have a lot of flashes, a lot of things happening on the screen, a lot of those are created using effects after the video has been created. Almost, and I hesitate to use the word almost, but almost all videos that you see in a movie theater at any time have had some type of an effect applied to them. Even if it's as simple as in this color group, you have color correctors. Even if it's as simple as that, you can almost guarantee that you're going to have some type of effects that have been added to a clip or project. So some of these are very simple. We have like a colorize one, for example, which is going to add a tint to the video. And using the inspector, I can change how that actually applies to or customizes the clip. I can use the checkbox to uncheck a clip. I think I added 2 of these on accident. If you added a effect you don't like, you click on the name of the effect and then click the delete key to remove it. But the checkbox lets you see kind of before and after an effect. If it's got colors, you just click on the color well, and you'll see the color wheel. And you can change that tint color. Or I could click the little drop-down menu and use the eyedropper to choose one. All these options for customizing just the colorize effect, which is probably one of the simplest effects in there. But there are some very complicated effects to do things like distort a video. This will actually create really more of an effect itself. We can see how it's blending that. So a lot of effects that you can change, customize, and use in your videos. However, the other thing that's done, because you could use a color filter or effect to make it look a certain way, but they do have some pretty powerful color correction tools built into Final Cut Pro. I'm not going to go into these right now, but this little color Inspector is where you can go to actually adjust this. You can use the color board, color wheels. You have the curves, which are, I find these extremely helpful. But a lot of tools in here for doing very, very subtle color corrections or even really dramatic things. So definitely, if you're getting into this and you're new to editing with video, color correction might not be something you initially start off with learning, but there are some pretty powerful color correction tools in here. Now, I did leave a little gap at the end here. I do actually want to add some credits to the end of this video. So I'm gonna do that. I have on our titles and generator sidebar here, I have a credits section. And the first one here is pretty straightforward. It's just a scrolling credits. So I'm just going to drag that down. And if I drag it onto the timeline, it adds it as its own little clip here. And then I can go up to the inspector. And we have different inspectors here, but one of them will actually let me get in and change the text here. So I can go in here and adjust all these. I could just double click or drag this down to make it easier, but I could double click on here, put my name here. I'll say I was the editor. And we'll just delete the rest of these for right now. And now if I play back the project, there we get a little scrolling credits. Pretty straightforward. I don't like the black background though. It's too shocking. It's just very, very jarring. So I'm gonna click on this clip. I'm gonna drag it up, make it a connected clip, and then I'm gonna go into the generator section, and we actually have some backgrounds. And I like the clouds, so I'm gonna drag the clouds down and add that. And we're gonna use the razor blade, just hitting B to cut off the end here. Back. Snapping, this got turned off. I'm going to turn snapping back on because that's actually pretty useful. And now if I play, the clouds don't look just the way I want it to. So I'm going to select the clouds, go up to the inspector, and I can adjust how many clouds are in there. Make them a little faster. Yeah, I like that. And then I'm going to add a transition. So I'm going to go to the transition browser. I'm just going to get my cross dissolve for both the beginning and the end. There we go. I like those credits. And then I'm going to click anywhere in the gray and hit Shift Z just to zoom that so we can see the entire project. So let me summarize what we just did there in step 5. We used the transition browser to add some transitions. That's what each of these gray areas are in between the clips. We use the inspector in some cases in the top right to customize those transitions. We use the trim tool to move the transitions around. We then use the effects browser here to add some video effects. There's also audio effects on there for customizing and manipulating the way the audio sounds. So I'd recommend playing with those. And then we added the credits title and used a generator, the clouds background generator, to make a background for that video. So looking at this video, I'm pretty happy with it. We got some video clips, we got stills, got a title, got music, transitions, all kinds of good stuff. So once your video is done, it's time to share it. And sharing the video is actually fairly simple. At the top right corner, there's a share menu. And you just click that menu to see the destinations you can share to. If there's a place you want to share this to that's not on this list, you do have an option at the bottom to add a destination, but these are the most common ones. And you can share to things like a master file. And if I click on that, I'm going to see the options for sharing that. But a master file is how you would share this kind of as a completed video. You want to archive this and save this as a final project. Just do that. You can go in here and change the name, add a description, add tags to really customize that. And then at the bottom, it lets us know how it's sharing this. This was all shot in 4K, so the resolution is 3,840 pixels by 2,160 at 30 frames per second. It's 51 seconds is what the final time came out of. And if we share it as a master file, it's going to be about 3.8 gigabytes in space. Now, that's a really large file. So for sharing this onto the internet, we're trying to get it out to someone else. Sharing it as a master file is not a good way to share it because it's just too large. You could go into settings and adjust these to change the codec and the format, and sometimes that's going to make it a little smaller. But really, using these other share destinations is really the best way to do it. If you know you're going to be watching this on your iPhone, or you want to send it to someone else, maybe through Facebook, you can go through and select that option, and then you get a file that's designed exactly for that. If you have a DVD burner connected to your Mac or built into your Mac, you can click the DVD option, and this actually lets you share directly to a DVD. Under settings, it's going to create a menu. It's going to burn it for you so that all you have to do is take that DVD, put it in a DVD player, and then you can watch it. That's a great way if you're creating and editing a little movie, maybe you're sharing it with the grandparents. That's a great way for them. You just mail it off to them. They put that DVD in the player, all set. You're good to go. Now, in reality, everything these days seems to be so digital and so instant. You're watching this maybe live on a video stream. There's an option in here to share it to YouTube. So we can click on YouTube. We put in the titles. We put in the description we want with the video. Put in the keywords or the tags that you want on here to make this video really searchable and for people to find it. And notice at the bottom, it is going to share it as 720 as far as our resolution, so much smaller. It is compressing it, but it's only 64 gigabytes. It's a really small file, so this is great for sharing to the web. Under the settings menu, this is where you would click on sign in to sign into your account, and then you can choose the resolution. So we don't want 720, maybe we want 4K. We can do that here. You don't have to use a different app. You can just change it. It's going to be a little bit larger, 146 megabytes, but that's okay. That gives the best quality to send over to YouTube. I think compression, this is just a side note, just a tip. Faster encode, I'm not in any hurry, so I'm going to change this to better quality. I want the people that are going to see this to get the best quality out of it. So once you're signed in, just hit next, and it'll take you through the steps to get that uploaded onto YouTube, and really it's going to do it for you. There's not many steps that you have to do for sharing. So that's how you share the final project. So let me switch back here, and that's kind of the demo that I had for you and the introduction to Final Cut. Just to review what we've just done, the 6 steps in this workflow. We imported the media using the import media window or the Command I shortcut. And you can use that to import video from an iPhone, from a GoPro camera, from almost any other kind of camera that you have, or import clips that are already on your computer, or import maybe an iMovie project or a project you started on another video editing software that now you want to continue in Final Cut. After stuff gets imported into Final Cut, it's time to organize that media, the music, all of the content. So that's what step 2 was. We organized it. Remember that a library, a Final Cut Pro 10 library, is the top of the organization. That's kind of your master folder. And then there's an event that's stored inside that library. And the events are where your video and projects are stored. And then we created a project to actually start editing the movie in step 3 by adding clips to that project. Step 4, we went back and used tools like the trim tool to refine that rough cut. We also used the enhancements menu to do things like balance color and enhance audio. We also added and imported music at this point using the photos and sounds sidebar. Then we moved on to step 5 where we added transitions and effects. Things like the credits at the end of the video we added in. And then once it was all finished, we shared that to YouTube so that people can watch that. And just to review here, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the project. And in the lower right corner, there's this little button that goes to the outside. This is going to play full screen. So let's watch that video. Let me make sure you guys can actually hear that. I don't think you can. That's okay. I'll turn it up so you can hear it through the headphones, hopefully. Audio is not as important for this one. But this is the play full screen button. And there's our credits. So I hope you found this demo informative. Again, it was directed at people brand new with Final Cut Pro 10. So I understand that some of you might not have found everything completely useful. But this is directed at people that are brand new to it. And if you are brand new, you are probably overwhelmed with what you just saw here and have more questions than you did at the beginning. And that's expected. That's okay. So here's some additional resources where you can find answers to more things. One of the easiest resources is this channel. So just subscribe. You'll get additional free content on there, other videos and tips. But one of the most detailed of resources is that help menu I mentioned. The Final Cut Pro help menu has access to just some extremely in-depth detail help, the user guide, which is nearly 1,000 pages, and access to the support website where there's just an unlimited amount of information on there, more than you can possibly want to know or learn. But tons of stuff on there, answers to just about all questions are on there. So I strongly recommend don't just brush off the help menu. Use it, go into the user guide. You're going to learn some things there. And if you are looking more of a guide and want to be kind of told step by step roughly where to go, I've written an awesome guide to Final Cut Pro 10. You can just do a search through the web. It's on iBooks, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the big ones. And that guide, it is not literally step-by-step telling you what to do. Because I find that a step-by-step guide, although it's great, you don't necessarily learn or retain that. And as an editor, you shouldn't be looking at a guide and going, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. Really, you want the tool to be kind of invisible. You want to just edit. You want to just put stuff where it's supposed to go and not have to deal with learning that tool. And that's what Final Cut's all about. And that's what an awesome guide to Final Cut Pro 10, the way that it's written, is for. So definitely check that out. If you have any feedback, if you read that guide, please leave a review or get in contact with me directly. I'm always looking to improve that and to make that better. You can also go on and follow at Final Cut Pro Help on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're up there on the social part of it. Instagram specifically, I post a new shortcut every single day, a Final Cut Pro shortcut. So if you're looking to learn little tips and tricks, definitely the social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those is up there. Or if you just want to get in contact with me directly, you can definitely tweet at Final Cut Pro or direct message me on any of those social platforms, but you can send an email as well. I know, especially with issues, sending me screenshots, Shift Command 3 is the shortcut to take a screenshot. Send screenshots to finalcutprohelp@me.com and detail what the issue is. It's a great way for me to try to help you and get you answers that you are looking for. You can also read my blog. I don't necessarily write too much on it, but anawesomeguide.com is my website, and I have blogs on there and other resources that are hopefully pretty helpful. And like I said earlier, an awesome guide to Final Cut Pro right now 10.3 is the newest guide. That one's definitely on there for your resources. And as you grow with Final Cut, it's very common to want to build your own transitions, your own titles, effects, and have a lot more control of all of those things in Final Cut. And that's where motion comes in. Motion is the motion graphics application designed by Apple and one of the perfect companions to Final Cut Pro 10. And I'm really excited because as of today, an awesome guide to Motion has been updated and is for sale on all the major stores. And this has been completely rewritten from the older version and should help you if you're brand new to using Motion and getting into that. That's what this is about. On the picture there, this is the cover for the book. You can see on the screen there, we're doing an Apple TV demo, and there's titles on the screen. There's even a background, a logo, all kinds of things that we've added to this project. That's what Motion's all about. It's really creating those advanced titles and effects and things that you use in Final Cut. So if you're looking to get into that and looking for the next step after Final Cut, I know this is geared towards beginners, but the next step is Motion, and that guide is also available for purchase. So this has been episode 3 of Final Cut Pro Help Live. Again, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment with any questions or feedback that you have. If you liked the video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. Totally cool too. Do whatever you want on those ones. But if you can, just any feedback that you have, things that you liked, you didn't like, any of those options that you saw with Twitter, Instagram, email me, however you want to get in contact. Just some kind of feedback. If you're sitting there thinking something, I want to know what it is so I can improve these streams and answer the questions that you have. So that's how I build content, is based on what you guys want. So thank you so much again for tuning into this. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, whatever time of day it is. If you're watching on replay, all good. And we will be back hopefully next month. We had issues technically at the beginning of May and couldn't do a stream. But hopefully we'll be back July 1st with the next episode of Final Cut Pro Help Live. If there's a specific topic you're looking to know more about, or you want me to cover in one of these live sessions, or maybe in a video tutorial, again, shoot an email, tweet, Instagram, direct message, whatever you want to do, get in contact. I love reading those and getting you the content that you actually want to see. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your night.